So in this video I want to talk about what I learned in studying EHS for over 1.5 years and basically how I got rid of my own EHS. EHS, by the way, stands for electro-hypersensitivity. You could also just say EMF sensitivity. And by the way, everything I'm gonna say here in this video is for entertainment and informational purposes only. So this is no medical advice. Basically, everything I'm gonna say here is like stories from myself, stories from clients, just stories. So the first thing that probably comes to your mind is, do I even have this problem? And so there are two types of people that are watching this. Either you know for sure that you have EHS, or you kind of suspect having it. Now, if you kind of suspect having EHS, then I'm gonna try to help you figure this out, because there's kind of conflicting information out there. Some people almost always sound so stupid when you hear this, just like, oh, I'm getting so much pain and this. By the way, they do actually get pain and you should laugh about that. But for me, that sounded a little weird as well. And that was actually not the symptoms that I had. So for me, the symptoms, I don't have any pain. The only thing that I did get a lot was brain fog, but I couldn't really connect the dots there. I just got brain fog, I didn't know why. It probably also causes some ADHD for me, so I can't really focus too much on things. But the things that I figured it out on was my digestion and also my sleep. So my digestion and my sleep were pretty big problems that I had around like over 2 years ago, kind of. I basically had all these digestive issues. I tried everything with my diet and I had really bad sleeping issues. And long story short, through a coincidence, I found out about EHS and I was confused because I used to be the biggest doubter when it comes to this topic. I didn't believe any of it. My mom, years before that again, always told me that she was sensitive and this and that. I just couldn't believe it. I was always like, it could be 100 different things why you cannot sleep now. It doesn't have to be that you're sensitive, and why are only you sensitive and not me? Well, years later I found out that I was actually sensitive, and I found that out. I was super desperate, searching for a solution. There was this guy, he's basically sold a product. Before I'm gonna say, you have to be very careful with these products because a lot of products don't work. But I knew for a fact that this definitely does work. I just didn't know if it would help me. And basically I tried it out and it fixed almost all my issues. And it was such a drastic effect that I knew like, wow, this is really a thing. And yes, it did also help my mother. So I kind of figured out, wow, she was actually always like sensitive and everything, and I didn't take that so serious. But I don't think, for example, that I was always sensitive, but more on that soon. First up, there are people like me that get digestive issues. Some people get headaches, some people get this. A lot of people that you will find that have EHS, they get pain. And that's why they actually go outside and say like, I have EHS, because they can literally feel it so much. For me, it was a lot harder to figure this out. So there's like a lot of people out there that actually have it and they don't know it, just like I was kind of one of those cases. But just so you understand, it can have a lot of different areas where it can affect you. And that comes down to the reason that it basically affects your cells in a way. And you have cells everywhere, and then it depends on what kind of organ you're sensitive in. Now there are some people that literally are sensitive almost everywhere in their body, and there are some people that are more like me that have it in specific areas in my body, although that's kind of expanded as well. And you also need to understand that through like working with different people, I figured out that certain people, we always say just EMF, but there are different types of radiation. And for example, I am only sensitive to basically I used to be sensitive to only certain parts or certain EMFs. And then there are people that are only sensitive to other certain EMFs. And then there are, again, people that are sensitive to all of them, which are, of course, the hardest cases. But that took me a long time to understand, because I remember a specific woman, I basically sold and do still sell certain products that help you with it. And I remember there was like a woman, she was really sensitive to the lower parts of the frequencies where, I'm gonna be honest, I don't feel anything. If someone would just tell me this and show me the effects, like I wouldn't believe it because I'm personally not sensitive. I'm more sensitive to the higher ones. And she was basically feeling it everywhere. And I met actually does something about EHS to note as well. Usually women are a lot more affected by it. That just comes down to so many things like their nervous system. There are some parts that are just a little different in the woman body, but that doesn't mean that you're weird if you're a guy and you have EHS or you're getting pain. That it's just like a general thing. Usually women feel it a lot more. So the people that I have worked with, I've worked with more women than with men. And usually it was like this, like they had really bad EHS and their husbands maybe had some kind of parts about it, but they were still kind of fine. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, how did I actually get rid of my EHS? So a different kind of viewpoint that we could get is, how did I even get it? Because I'm pretty sure that I didn't always have it. Probably I had it to a small degree, but then at some point it got really bad. And what I figured out is that the supplements that I used to take were actually part of the reason why. And that comes down to how electromagnetic frequencies work. I'm not gonna get into the details here, don't worry. But basically at a certain point in my life, I was taking a lot of zinc supplements. And zinc is a transition metal. And you can look this up. Electromagnetic frequencies, like your Wi-Fi, etc., actually affect those transition metals. So when you're taking a lot of metals, then they're gonna be stored inside of your tissues. And as you can imagine, if you're becoming Iron Man on the inside, then you're attracting a little bit more of those kind of cool frequencies. And that was one of the reasons why I got super sensitive. Of course, paired with the fact that I was in environments where there was also a lot of radiation. So that together basically created the deadly poison. So one of the really big things that helped me was actually getting rid of a lot of metals inside of my body. But be very careful here. It's not like every single EHS patient out there has too many metals inside of them. Yeah, some do, like I did, but there are some that totally don't have this problem that I've worked with. And the other part is, of course, as you can kind of figure out, is that you're not in environments where the radiation is so high. Because first of all, you're getting symptoms, but I can also tell you that it's not just that you're suffering, but it's also that your resilience goes down further. So you need to find environments where you're basically free from all of this stuff. And that is pretty hard to find. So for example, I once sold a product to a woman. She moved into the absolute nowhere. Okay, absolute isn't really true because she still had some neighbors. But I remember checking out the place on Google Maps and I was like, wow, that's such a small town. That must be perfect to live there. And it was like beautiful with a lot of nature, etc., etc. Well, guess what? 100 meters away from her, there was actually a cell tower, but even worse, one of her neighbors was a total EMF junkie. And so the environment was basically almost as bad, if not worse sometimes, than my environment. And I'm living in Berlin, which is a big city. So you can kind of figure out like, wow, that's my big realization at that point was as well, like, wow, you can't just like move out of the city and then you're free because it's everywhere. That's the big problem. And the more you're exposed to it, especially if you're super sensitive, the worse it gets. So you need to spend as much time as you can in environments where it's not high. Now there are two ways to actually go about doing this, or probably three. The one that I actually use is using certain products, even when you are in bad environments, but I'm gonna cut that out for now. The other one is, of course, just checking out your environment and searching for a place where you feel good. Because as you have EHS, the cool thing about you is that you technically don't really need a meter. So for example, my mom, she gets certain pain in her body and I have a meter, and there was one time we would go through a shop and I wanted to see if that was actually correct or if there was something that she was imagining or something. So I would basically tell her, yeah, go there. And I'll look at my meter and basically follow her and always say that, well, I told her, like, always say when you're feeling worse and when you think that the radiation is basically higher. And that was like a probably 95% correct rate. I actually don't know how to say it. Like 95% of the time she was correct. Like she would tell me that, oh, here it's higher, and I would make another step and see like on the meter, yeah, it's actually higher here. Now that's the cool thing, especially if you're having some pain. Obviously it's not super cool, but at least there's some benefit. And then there are people like me that I do get issues, but I can't really tell it that accurately, I think. So then you would have to get a meter. And by the way, I'm not going to talk about all the meters here, but just be careful that you don't buy a super cheap meter, because then you just have to buy another one, because that meter is going to be super bad. Now to finish this video off, I'm going to give you one more tip that really helped me getting rid of EHS, and that is actually grounding. Now you might have heard about grounding before if you're kind of searching about this topic, but you have to be very, very careful here, because I used to ground myself and it probably made my EHS actually worse, and also the EHS of my mom. So you have to be very, very careful here. Don't connect yourself to any like outlet plugs or something in your house. It's usually polluted with dirty electricity, so you don't want to do that. And I also don't recommend that you ground in cities, because there you have similar concerns. The only places where you should ground is if there are not a lot of houses near you, you're just totally in nature, and then you can ground. Now if you don't know what grounding is exactly, you can look it up, but it's basically just you connecting, like you putting your feet on the ground with no shoe, no rubber sole in between that. And then you're literally getting an electrical connection to the earth basically, and you're absorbing electrons. And that's an actual thing, you can even measure it, and it will help with your EHS. Now I'm not saying that it will cure it or anything, but it will probably make you feel a lot better. It's gonna clear up the fog in your brain. And the longer you do it, honestly, the better. But if you can only do it for a certain time frame, then at least do it 15 minutes every single day, and it's already gonna have a huge effect. And if you're basically in that time surrounded by some EMFs, it's probably gonna calm the effect down. So that's gonna be it for this video. If you want more advice, especially more personalized advice, then check out the video description, and see you in the next one.